What's up, everybody? It's Jordan, and welcome to the Sports Behind Show. Today is September 2nd, 2021. And in this video, we're going to be doing an AFC West Divisional preview. And joining me today is Joe Morley and Tony Tucker of the Warzone Sports Network. How you all doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. I thought Joe was going to go first, but I am doing tremendously.
But I am a gentleman, so I let you go first. But I'm doing great. Thanks for having us on.
Really glad both of y'all could join the show today. And, Tony, you're a Chargers fan, and Joe, you're a Raiders fan. So can you kind of tell, the listeners how you became, a big fan of each of your teams?
Joe, you go first.
Oh, you want me to go first? Because the Raider Nation always goes first, especially in the standings. We're always right above it. Just to let you guys know. Everybody's asked me that, and for the last couple of weeks, people have been asking how I became a Raider fan, and I'm not sure of how I actually became a Raider fan because I've said it before. There's not a lot of sports people in my family. I do remember just being a young kid and having a lot of Raider stuff and going to a Raider game in LA, and then moving on, but the first NFL draft and NFL season that I actually watched was Charles Woodson's first season, and then he just went into the Hall of Fame. So I am pretty damn old now. But yeah, I had to fall in love with the game myself, so I taught it all myself. And Raider Nation, with the history and everything that they have, just if you're not an NFL fan or you are just becoming new to NFL and you read up on the Raider history, you'll fall in love with the Raiders as well.
That is all false. It's really easy to not love the Raiders. So you can see in my background here, I was originally a Packers fan. I'm from Upper Michigan. I was closer to Green Bay than Detroit. We got all the Packer games. There was a guy with a sweet neck duster, a Mississippi mud flap named Don Mikowski. He used to throw to a guy named Sterling Sharp. I was in love with the Packers. Then they got Brett Favre. When the Favre-Rodgers divorce happened, I made the right decision, and I went with my real dad to the Jets and then the Vikings. And I never returned home to my stepfather, that is Aaron Rodgers, because he's horrible and abusive, and I could never love him. I've not been a fan of a team for a long time, but I did live in San Diego. I've always had an affinity for, Phillip Rivers and LaDainian Tomlinson, Junior Seau when I was really young, even going back to Natron Means. I decided I've waited long enough for Aaron Rodgers to leave the Packers. We started the Warzone Sports Network. I was like, you know what? I'm living in LA. The Chargers are here. I'm going to throw all of my energy and support behind the Los Angeles Chargers. And it's time to bolt up because we're going to the playoffs this year. I cannot wait to break down this division.
I'm not even going to disagree with the part you're saying, the playoffs. I'm super, super high on the Chargers. We'll get into that later in the episode because, we have to talk about the worst teams in the division first. And, the Raiders are going to be one of those first teams, definitely. But it's interesting because, Tony, you're a Chargers fan, and you see the memes all the time that the Chargers have no fans. And then you look at Raiders fans. Like, I went to a Bengals-Raiders game years ago. It was when Palmer, his revenge game against the Bengals. I mean, the Raiders fans are absolutely crazy. There was a fight in the stands that game. I went to the Hall of Fame years ago. I was like a 10-year-old little kid. And there was a Raiders fan with shoulder pads, face paint on, scared to living crap out of me. So I'm hoping Joe is not one of those type of fans when he go to games. But we'll start with the Broncos because I know you all aren't high on the Broncos like I am. So we'll go ahead and start with them. So Joe, I'll start with you. What are your kind of thoughts on these? Also with the key additions, Teddy Bridgewater should be on there. But Joe, we'll start with you. What are your kind of thoughts on these departures and additions for the Denver Broncos?
Kyle Fuller, Patrick Surtain, amazing additions right there, and even my boy Javonte Williams. I like everything that they've done. I don't bash the Broncos. I just think they're in a very tough division. This is AFC West is one of the hardest divisions, and I know you guys like to bash the Raiders a lot, but the Raiders, the Chiefs, the Chargers, and the Broncos, full of talent, a lot of talent. The Broncos do have an issue at quarterback. They are starting Teddy Bridgewater, which is a key addition as well. But they need to gel, and we got to see if Vic Fangio actually is a great head coach, or is he still just that defensive guy?
Tony, what are your kind of thoughts on the Broncos?
Okay, so I disagree on the quarterback position for the Broncos because I think Teddy fits them like a glove, right? You see what I did there? Teddy two gloves. I did my prediction for this team at 7-10. And to me, that's a little low, knowing that Bridgewater has the starting job from day one, because I really thought the team wanted to see what they had in Locke, and they were going to run him out there for 4 or 5 games to start the season. It might be a little bit rocky. Maybe he costs them a game. So my prediction, whenever it is revealed, is probably a little bit lower, but I'm going to stick with it because that's what I made when I said it, and I'm good with it. But I love all the additions they've made. This is going to be one of the best defenses in the NFL.
Yeah.
And, you bring up their defense. I could talk forever about their offense. I try not to be biased about the Bengals, and, they have a lot of young, talented players in offense. But you can make a case the Broncos have some of the best young talent in the NFL on offense. I mean, they just need to figure out that quarterback spots. I mean, they lost A.J. Boye in the offseason. They lost Philip Lindsay. That's not a huge departure, but I think Lindsley was kind of underrated during his time with Denver. I mean, their additions with Kyle Fuller and Patrick Surtain, their corners are just really phenomenal now. They're bringing Javonte Williams, who I think is going to be a great piece at running back once Melvin Gordon's contract runs out next season. And then, bringing Teddy Bridgewater, to me, I posted the video last week. I was one of those stupid fans who put Drew Lock as an MVP last year. I don't even like Drew Lock. I just thought he was going to be good. That was easily my worst prediction of all time. But to me, I think it's honestly kind of early to give up on Lock. I'm not trying to fanboy over him. Like I said, I'm not even a fan of him. I just think he has potential that we haven't seen yet. We started 18 games. I believe he's 6-12, 7-11, something like that. But you look at it, and a couple of those games, he didn't even start from start to finish. A couple of those games, he got hurt last season. If I was Denver, they announced obviously that Bridgewater is their quarterback. I think it should have been Locke, because the fact that you're already giving up on Locke to begin the season clearly means you did not really have any, he wasn't clearly with Locke not playing week 1, you're already pretty much giving up on him. And then if you put Locke back in, and then it's going to be pretty much a disaster possibly for the Broncos. I feel that they can be good, whether it's Locke or Bridgewater, because they're in a type of system where you don't have to be great. You don't have to be throwing for 350 yards to, be winning games. All you have to do is maybe get a touchdown or 2, turnover-free football, more of a game manager role for Bridgewater or Locke. With the offense they have, I think they can be very successful. And just with Denver, and another thing, though, to me is if you weren't going to name Drew Lock your starting quarterback week 1, why did you pass up on Matt Jones and Justin Fields? To me, that really makes no sense. I know you need some corner help and getting Patrick Surtain, but you do not have a top 10 pick often. And you have a chance to get Mac Jones, who's going to be a week 1 starter in the Patriots, and Justin Fields, who will be starting very soon in Chicago. I just don't understand why Denver would not take that route and getting a quarterback opposed to a corner, especially if they're basically already done with Drew Lock.
So I'm going to push back a little bit, because I don't believe they've given up on Drew Lock, and I do see the talent you're talking about. My problem is between the ears. I think he needs a little more time, and I think they brought in Bridgewater to be a bridge quarterback for Drew Lock, right? Like they're not giving up on him. Otherwise, they would have traded him or, like you said, grabbed one of those rookie quarterbacks in the draft. Fangio's trying to solidify himself as a long-term coach. And if he runs out Locke and he makes bad plays and costs the defense, they want to play defense and run the football. They just need somebody who's going to run the offense very sort of vanilla style, take shots every once in a while. That's Bridgewater. Fangio wants the job, and the safer route to getting the job and keeping it and getting a contract extension is through Bridgewater, not through Locke's upside, because there's a lot of downside with somebody who thinks that they're Patrick Mahomes. That's a scary position to be in. So I don't think Locke is done. Otherwise, they would have made a move this year and got one of those 2 quarterbacks you mentioned.
I'm agreeing with Tony. I agree with Tony that they're not done with Locke, because if you drop Locke, if you drop Locke right now, if the Broncos let Locke go, there'd be many teams out there lined up, at least 10, 15 teams lined up to get Drew Locke right now. So it's a mismanagement. They don't have time to let him develop again. this season because, like you were saying, Vic Fangio's job is on the line. So he needs to go out there with Teddy Bridgewater. Vic Fangio is a defensive guy, a defensive coach, right? So he knows the importance. He already knows that he's going to get out there and have the best game plan for his defense, and his defense is going to shut you down and not give up a lot of points. But when you have a guy like Drew Luck that takes the risk, that does all that, and can turn the ball over, then it's not going to help you. So he wants that game manager so they can win the 13 to 10 games, 16 to 13 games without having that. And they don't have the time to let Drew Lock develop for one more year, and they're hoping that he'll learn on the bench. And then once he gets that contract extension like Tony's talking about, or they find out like next year and the new coach comes in and they don't want him or whatever, then they make the decision in the offseason. But if you were to start Drew Lock right now, the Denver fans in their head already have the Drew Lock from last year, and they would be calling for Teddy Bridgewater. So the better way to do it was to start Teddy Bridgewater, let him go. If he fails, then you go back to Drew Lock. Where if you went to Drew Lock first, you have to put him on that short leash, and then the fans are calling for Teddy Bridgewater. So I think they're doing it the right way in Denver.
And it's interesting with Locke because I honestly feel like he has potential to be pretty good this year. Not great, but I think he could be a good quarterback. He's worked out with Peyton Manning quite a bit in the offseason. But with starting Bridgewater, I agree with you all. It would be safer to start him because Locke, we haven't seen his potential completely, and he's being inconsistent. And I mean, you do not want to start an inconsistent quarterback, week one at times when you're having a quarterback who can be a game manager role like Bridgewater. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Locke maybe take over week 4 or 5, something like that. I don't see Bridgewater starting all 17 games. If Bridgewater starts all 17 games, my prediction for the Broncos would go down a couple games because I feel like Locke will be better this season. And I don't think Bridgewater will be bad because they're in a position where they don't have to carry a team. More so the team can just carry them with all their talents. But with Denver, it's interesting. I'm very intrigued by when Drew Lock will end up starting in Denver, and especially how good these quarterbacks will be because I really felt like this was one of the more kind of underrated quarterback battles as we head into the regular season. And switching to the next team, Joe's favorite team and the Raiders. So Joe, can you kind of talk about your thoughts on these departures and additions for the Raiders?
There we go. Nelson Aguilar was probably the best wide receiver, but he's been something that the Raiders have been able to find throughout the years. Terrell Williams played what 2 games. He was done. But I like Kenyon Drake. Hopefully they'll find a good role for him, being the catching back out of the backfield. Ngakoue, people always talk about like, oh, he's been on multiple teams, but he's finally on a team. He wanted out of Jacksonville. He didn't like the way, and he wanted out of Jacksonville the year everybody wanted out of Jacksonville. Jacksonville did him dirty and sent him to Minnesota where he didn't want to play. He ended up, and then Minnesota sending him to Baltimore where he didn't want to play. He always wanted to be in Vegas. He tried to get the trade to Vegas. Tony Khan and the rest of them did him dirty and sent him places he want to be. Now he's making a big difference in Las Vegas. Casey Hayward, the same thing. He might have lost a step, but he's there to. What the Raiders did with their additions this year is they brought in key veterans that could teach the young players the ropes a little bit more this year.
Tony, what are your thoughts on the Raiders, departures and additions?
It's tough because I think Joe makes a good point. They did bring in some veterans. I don't know. Did Gerald McCoy make the final?
Yes, he did.
He did. Yeah. So like he said, they brought in a lot of veterans that know the game and can help out the young talent they have there, right? Like Cleveland Ferrell needs to, he really needs to pay off, and Abrams needs to take a step. And then they have so much young talent at wide receiver. They all need to sort of pay off there too. And then I think that like we finally have to see Derek Carr take that step out of being just being average. Like, like he has the ability to join the upper echelon of quarterbacks, right? Like I wouldn't say could be Aaron Rodgers necessarily, but he could be in that conversation we're talking about of guys that can win games. He has athletic ability, arm strength, and everything. He just seems to play a little too tentative in games. Maybe that's play calling, maybe it's him, whatever it is. So as far as the additions, the departures go, they didn't really lose anybody that I thought was worth of note. And I thought they upgraded on offensive line. I like the safety they got in the second round. I've heard nice things about Alex Leatherwood. So the Raiders are better. It's just fun to make fun of the Raiders and their fans. That's really what it is. But they're better than I think sort of the internet gives them credit for.
Or like because like you said, it's easy to hate on the Raiders. Very easy to hate on the Raiders. And a lot of people get blinded by that when you just go, oh, I hate the Raiders, and then you're never going to give them that chance. You're never just going to look at their roster and be like, you know what? They actually have a little bit of talent. Because if you look at the team, even with these young wide receivers, this is a top 10 offense. This is a top 10 offense in the NFL. And you can laugh about it, but you go back and look at the stats. Last year, with all the injuries and everything they had, they were the 11th best offense in the NFL. It's not the offense that holds this team back. It's the defense. And you saw that last year in a lot of these games.
The league is a quarterback league, right? So like if it's going to be Derek Carr, we all look around and we're like, oh, this team's winning. It's the same 8 quarterbacks. So he needs to join that 8 quarterback group, or the Raiders are going to be another 8-8, whatever it is, 8-9 team, 7-10 team. If he doesn't take that next step and just say, okay, 3-point game, fourth quarter, I've got the ball. Go to work, Ruggs. Go to work, Edwards. Waller, you're getting a bunch. Like, if we don't see that, the Raiders will continue to just wallow around the middle.
And you mentioned the offensive line, with Leatherwood and the second-round pick on TCU safety, Trevon Moehrig. He was not on the additions here, but that's, in my opinion, maybe my favorite pick for them, whether it's a draft pick or addition. I think Moehrig is going to be great in the Raiders defense. In my opinion, he was easily, without a doubt, the best safety in the NFL, in the NFL draft. He was a top 20 talent. And despite, him being the best player at his position in the draft, I honestly thought he was still the most underrated player at his position, as crazy as that sounds. But you also look at the Leatherwood pick. I really feel like, that was not a good pick. It gets really overhated. But I feel like that Trevon Moehrig pick kind of made up for it in the second round. Looking at some of their additions, bring in Ndakwe, which I think is a, terrific, signing of defensive line. Like you mentioned, defense was their main issue last year. I mean, they fired Paul Guenther midway through the season. That did not really work like people thought it would. And, Kenyon Drake, to me, I think that's a phenomenal signing. I mean, Drake and Josh Jacobs, that's easily one of the best 1-2 running backs in the NFL. And, I mean, that can also kind of take some pressure off Carr, because when you have 2 running backs, you just, spread the ball around, running the ball, try to take some pressure off Carr because, he's not, great, like Tony was saying, under pressure. So this Raiders team, they had some nice acquisitions in the offseason. They didn't have anything, humongous, but I thought overall it was a pretty good offseason for the Raiders. And I feel like this Raiders team is pretty interesting heading into the regular season.
Yeah, and just to touch on it just a little bit, a lot of people, the only defense that people have, like when they go, the Raiders sucked this year and they had a bad offseason, is they go, look what they did. They got rid of 3 offensive linemen. Trent Brown never wanted to be there. He only played 5 games. Gabe Jackson was already losing his job last year for the last 2 years. They talked about getting rid of him last year. They finally pulled the plug. The only main guy was Rodney Hudson, who was a center, and he asked to be out. They had a rookie in Andre James, which is going to be his second year now, taking over. They picked up the center from the Houston, Nick Martin, who's going to back him up. So I wouldn't hate on that offensive line. It looks like a pretty good offensive line. Alex Leatherwood, yes, and Tony can contest to this. That he saw me. I was pissed off when the Raiders drafted Alex Leatherwood. I was mad. But who did I want the Raiders to take? Moehrig. I wanted Moehrig, and they turned around and got him second round. So it worked out well. And if you look back at that pick now, it's actually a pretty damn good pick because Slater was hurt most of the preseason, right? He set out. Vera Tucker, he's been out the whole preseason. Darishaw's out for the season. Tevon Jenkins, the other tackle, there's like 5 or 6 tackles that were drafted that were supposed to be above them that are either hurt and have been hurt this whole preseason, or are out for the rest of the season. And Alex Leatherwood is the only one still standing. Has he made a few mistakes in the preseason? Yes, but it looks like he's gotten better every preseason game. And he played for Alabama, and you know how good that Alabama offense is. But the Raiders defense, like you're talking about, the young secondary is what I'm very excited about. And I know Charger fans like to bash and say that, oh, you guys got Gus Bradley, but Gus Bradley has a great track record in the NFL, and he makes it better for these young secondary guys. And not just John Abram, who needed a coach, but like you mentioned, Mo Rig, they brought in Tyler Gillespie, who was another top safety in the draft. They have Nate Hobbs, who's a rookie, who's going to be everywhere and all around. They have Arnett, who was a first-round pick last year. So they have a bunch of talent and a bunch of speed in that secondary. And then they just traded for Denzel Perryman, the linebacker, to go along with Corey Littleton, who was playing out of position last year with the horrible Paul Gunther defense. So it's going to be a very interesting defense. I joke about it, but it's funny because it's true. All the Raiders have to do is have a top 20 defense. You can be number 19 and you improve the team. They haven't been over top 20, 25 defense in the last 6 years. With Derek Carr, they've never had a top 25 defense. So they will finally have it this year, and it's going to make a big difference.
Definitely. I think we're going to see that for sure with Matthew Stafford and the Rams. Like he's had like one top 10 defenses in 11-year playing career. I think a similar situation for Carr where you can be aided by a team with good defense. This is the one thing I want to say about the Raiders real quick is that they seem to do things very old school, right? Like if you get these newer sort of young GMs, they're kind of moving around in the draft. They wanted Leatherwood. That was their target. And Mayock came out and said that. But they also could have moved to the back of the first round and still got him and added more pieces. But they're just like, this is our guy. We want him. We're taking him right here. They're not trying to add value. They're just like, they could have dropped down and got Ruggs. They could drop down and get players they want, but they're very old school. And they just are like, we've locked in on this guy and we're taking him here instead of trying to drop back and add value and more pieces to the team. And I think once they sort of get into like the new way of how things operate or bring somebody in who's young and is like, hey, this type of stuff works. Let's just try it out. Let's gamble. Maybe we miss on our guy and we have to go to a second one, but we're adding a pick and there'll still be good talent at the end. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that if the Raiders go that way, it'll be a scary for the rest of the AFC West.
No, and you're right on it, Tony. Like Mike Mayock is a draft genius, but he doesn't know how to work the trades in the draft. And we saw it with Clean Farrell. Well, with Farrell, you could have dropped down. You could have dropped out of the top 10 and got him still. And you saw it again this year with Alex Leatherwood. Like you said, they get stuck on their guys, and they think that they're so smart, which, you know, they could be because they get some great players. They think they're so smart, and they don't want to lose it to somebody else, and that's my guy. That's my guy. And I understand that if that's your guy, it's just like in fantasy football. If that's the guy that you want and you think that you need to take him now, you take him. But in the NFL, most of the time people don't evaluate the same way. And you mostly should know the circle enough where you could be like, okay, Alex Leatherwood's going to drop at least to 24, 25, and I can get there. But yeah, that's the only thing that I wish that they'd do different in the draft, Tony. You're right, is just get a couple extra draft picks. You see the great teams do that. New England always does that, trade back. Seattle's been doing it. The Rams do it they don't even have a first-round pick, and they've been doing good. So, yeah, just learn how to use the draft a little bit more, and that's what I thought Mayock would be better at. But, I mean, talent-wise, fifth-round talent, I mean, if he could just stock up on fifth-rounders all the time, I'd be happy with that.
And also, didn't they bring in, wasn't their first-round pick Damon Arnett as well, the corner from Ohio State?
Yeah, and people hated on him, but watch him this year.
But that's an interesting stat with the Raiders, you know, their defense with Carr. I did not know that. And you look at, you know, Tony mentioned Stafford. He's had horrible defenses during his time with Detroit. And if they just had an average defense, Stafford would have had, you know, multiple playoff wins. He's never had a playoff win. And you also kind of look at, you know, the middle of Drew Brees' career with the Saints. You know, their defense was so horrible. You think of Drew Brees, one of the best quarterbacks of all time, but he couldn't even get to the playoffs because their defense was just so bad. Maybe that's a different case with the Raiders this season, you know, and their defense. I definitely think it's going to be improved, and this Raiders team will be interesting. But with the AFC West, you look at these predictions for each team, they're just so difficult because the AFC West is one of the most difficult divisions in the NFL, in my opinion. It's extremely underrated. You can make a case that all 4 teams are playoff contenders. And speaking of playoff contenders, easily, one of my favorite teams to end of the year, not including the Bengals. My 3 favorite teams this year are the Panthers, Vikings, and the Chargers. I cannot wait for the Chargers. Tony, I'll let you start off with your favorite team.
Bolt up. Everybody's back healthy. I love Staley's approach to not play guys that he already knew were locked into the roster. He gave a little bit of run to some of the defenders. I think we saw Kenneth Murray, a linebacker, that I'm excited to see how he's used by Brandon Staley, a couple of the younger pass rushers. But the guys that were solidified didn't really take any snaps. There's no need there. In the departure category, Melvin Ingram, I watched a couple of, I know it's preseason, but I watched a couple of snaps from Melvin Ingram. Doesn't look like there's much left in the body, the knees. Denzel Perryman, good player. Hunter Henry continued to be banged up. Probably wouldn't have been worth the price tag, especially when you can add a veteran like Jared Cook and be able to draft. And they're trying to develop Parham, but honestly, I don't know how I feel about that. The additions, you got 2 members of the offensive line. That was one of the biggest problems. And this is like, if I was going to say my one criticism on your Bengals would be that this should have been more like what their draft was. Like, you get in their offseason, you're adding Corey Lindsley, you're adding Rashawn Slater in the draft. And then ASJ, Asante Samuel Jr., has already looked very nice in the preseason, adding depth to cornerbacks. I'm pumped for this season to start. We got 10 days until we kick off. It's going to be great.
The Chargers, I cannot wait for them this year. I know 99.9% of Bengal fans won't admit it. Herbert was better out of the 2 last year against Herbert and Burrow. Herbert was the best rookie quarterback we've ever seen last year, with a crappy offensive line that honestly does not get talked about enough how bad it was. You can make a case. There was times the Chargers offensive line was worse than the Bengals. I was talking to somebody the other day. They were telling me how crazy it was and how stupid. It's facts and stats. I mean, you look at it, the Chargers offensive line was really, really bad. And according to PFF last season, they were actually ranked last in the NFL when it came to, offensive line help and how bad they were. I mean, they lost Hunter Henry, but, he's kind of injury prone to the Patriots. They lost Melvin Ingram. He's going to kind of getting up there in age, and he's kind of been injury prone as well. But you look at their additions, Asante Samuel Jr. to me was a phenomenal pick, in the second round, a corner, out of Florida State. And then you look at, the offensive line. Rashawn Slater, I knew it was the pick, as soon as the Chargers were on the clock. It made so much sense. It was, without a doubt, in my opinion, 100% the best value pick in the entire first round of the draft. It was phenomenal. I think Slater's going to be the best offensive lineman in this draft class. I think he's going to be great. And then you look at Corey Lindsley, who's my favorite free agent signing in the offseason as well. Like, that was terrific. I mean, Corey Lindsley was the best center in the league last year, but you could also make a case he was a top 3 offensive lineman in general last year as well. Like, when you add a top 5 offensive lineman from last season, in my opinion, the best offensive lineman from the class. I mean, with Herbert coming back, Austin Eckler coming back from an injury, you look at some of these, weapons he has. There's no reason the Chargers should not be under 500. I feel like this team is going to be great. I mean, they ended the season, I believe, on a 3 or 4 game winning streak as well. So, 4-game winning streak, and they're going to surprise some people. I cannot wait for them this year. Herbert. I keep going back and forth between my MVP picks. I have a couple people.
Don't jinx us like that. You picked Locke last year. We'll just take all your love. Send me your address. I'll get you a jersey in the mail because you sound like you're ready to bolt up, my friend.
I'm not going to say. Okay, fine. I won't say Herbert is an MVP candidate, but I think he'll be good. I'll leave it at that.
I agree with you. Come on, Joe. It's time to gush.
I feel like throwing up right now. It's like all this Charger love is making me sick. It's making me sick. I do like the Lindsley move, but he's been hurt this offseason, right? Tony? He's been hurt already.
He's a little banged up. So Balaga's been a little banged up.
The whole offensive line upgrade they've been banged up, and you got to hope that they make it through the season. I don't know. I like Justin Herbert. I'm a big Oregon fan, if you guys didn't know that. So I did like Justin Herbert in Oregon as well. I thought the Chargers would be a great fit for him, even though I didn't want to see him there. I go against the Raiders all the time, so he did good. But you got to give Burrow some credit. Burrow didn't play the whole season, so I would have liked to see how Burrow and the Herbert thing would have panned out. But Justin Herbert is just so smart, and I actually went down to Charger camp and saw him live in person, and he blew me away. And like his arm strength and everything about him, like I'm sitting there like, how the hell did an NFL coach not know that he was better than Tyrod Taylor last year? Like that's how good he was. So they surrounded him with talent. They're going to get him there. I'm not really I don't know why. I don't know what it is. I know everybody loves Austin Eckler, but for some damn reason, I can never wrap my head around him. And it's not just – I don't say that I'm a Charger hater. I don't do anything like that. I try to be realist when I look at a team. But Austin Eckler, to me, is not a three-down running back. And so for the Chargers to have somebody else come in on third down or it's that big back, I want to know who it is. And Austin Eckler is a small guy too, and he takes a beating, right? He takes a beating going across the middle, doing all his stuff. So that's the only thing that doesn't sell me on the Chargers. I'm hoping for a big year out of Mike Williams, and that could be under the additions, right? Because he's always hurt every year, so that could actually be an addition to the Chargers. And I don't think they're going to use him like the past coaching staff. They're going to use him where he's not going to be diving for these balls, because every time you see him, that's where he's doing. He's diving for a ball, and his shoulder gets hurt or something. They're going to have him go across the middle. They're going to do some slants, and he's going to be the Michael Thomas over there. I like that. The Chargers, it's a good team. Good team. It just needs to stay healthy. I mean, you can add Derwin James to the addition because you don't see Derwin James on the field, and hopefully he'll be on the field this year. But this is what I'm not getting about the Chargers, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm dead wrong. Every year when a team gets a brand new head coach, first year head coach, there's always a learning curve for the head coach, no matter where he comes from. But we're not giving that learning curve to this coach, to Brandon Staley. We're all of a sudden going to anoint him as a great coach, like a guy who could lead a team to the playoffs first year. I'm kind of iffy about him. I understand he seems like a good guy and everything I read about him, and he has a good coaching tree, but it is his first year as a head coach. We need to see what he could do on the sideline, calling the timeouts, the substitutions, the game planning, all that. So I'm kind of
okay. Let me jump in because I think that I like his decisiveness, right? Like he sat down, he said, okay, we're not playing any of our starters. And I do think that there's going to be a little bit of a slow start. I think on the road, week 1 against that Washington football team defense, and your first team offense hasn't played together, like it's going to be a tough start to the season, like really getting it moving. But at the same time, it's like this team was a good field goal kicker away from being a 10-win team last year. And now you're getting back all of these people to start the season healthy, which is like you have to start with optimism, whether you're a fan or not a fan, just looking at the talent on paper, like the defense, bringing in a defensive head coach. If you could even just have somebody who could do clock management, situational management better than Anthony Lynn, you're winning a couple more games. We don't know if that's going to be the case with Staley, but there's nowhere to go but up from last year after all the bonehead things that happened. So, like, what are you shaking your hands for?
Because you're saying you were a couple of field goals away from being a playoff team or whatever.
A 10-win team.
But then you guys come and smash on the Raiders when the Raiders were 2 plays away from being a playoff team, and they improved their defense. So that the whole situation is like it's the same crap. I mean, I guess it's just speaking about how great this division is, but every team is like a couple plays away.
I don't smash on the Raiders. You are,
and you guys are the Chargers are a field goal kicker away, and you still don't have a damn field goal kicker.
Yeah, we still don't. I have no. I don't want to say anything bad about them.
The Chargers kicking battle was one of the biggest news is if you were following the Chargers, that's all they talked about every day. Vince Gaiano versus Bagley, and everybody knew Badgley was going to get cut. why didn't the Chargers bring in a lot of damn kickers in this training camp? Like, bring in 5 of them. Cut them every day. Once you saw the guy go 0 for 5, hey, get the hell out of here. We're bringing a new guy in. Find somebody.
But he seems to be that kind of guy that's like, I'm gonna just put confidence behind Vizcaino. Like he believes in him. The things that when you talk about, when you hear him listen, when I hear him talking, he's like, I love the power in his leg. I'm like, no. I want to hear about the consistency. I want to hear about the whole team stood around him, said horrible things about his upbringing, and he was still burying the ball from 52 yards away. Like, I'm not hearing that. I'm hearing he's got great kickoff power. I don't care. Like, yes, I want you to be able to have a good kickoff leg. I want to know that in crunch time, you're going to be able to put it right through the middle of the sticks. And we shall see. The last person I want to talk about on this team, the number 3 wide receiver, the rookie out of Tennessee, Josh Palmer, this kid's freaking amazing. He runs routes. He's fast. He's big. He's strong. And if Keenan Allen is getting double teamed or, like he's getting coverage, whatever, and Mike Williams, and you got a veteran like Jared Cook, Josh Palmer he's going to do some damage this year for that team as the number 3 wide receiver. And they'll be allowed to move Keenan into the slot a little more often because you can put the 2 bigger guys and Palmer and Mike Williams on the outside. I'm very excited for this offense to take off, weeks 2, 3, 4, like when they really start to get it rolling.
And I didn't touch on Jared Cook. Jared Cook hopefully should be a big addition. You put a tight end like that. Hunter Henry, like you said, was never on the field. When he was there, he was good, and Herbert found him. Cook he has the potential, and like you said, you have the 3 wide receivers that could take a lot of pressure away from Cook. If Herbert just finds Cook all day, I think that's a great addition right there.
You mentioned Palmer. I've watched your show a couple of times, and each time you talk about the Chargers, I keep on hearing you talk about Palmer almost as much as you talk about Chris Middleton when it comes to NBA.
Yes.
But you're talking about the Chargers and everything. I kind of agree with Joe. The one I don't know. The one thing I'm not so sure about is coaching. He's bringing first-year head coach. That's my only really concern with them. And you are talking about the Chargers were a couple of field goal kicks away from being in the playoffs. The Raiders were a game or 2 away from being in the playoffs. That was clearly not the case with the Bengals. I mean, we are head coach away, we're offense coordinator away, defense coordinator away, and offensive line. We get all that, we're a playoff team. But just a simple Fab 5, Fantastic 4, whatever you want to call it. We just need that, and then we'll be good. But kind of switching, to the final team here. You're the favorite in the AFC West, pretty much obviously, is the Kansas City Chiefs. So, Joe, can you kind of tell your thoughts on the Chiefs this season?
No, hey, the Chiefs are the Chiefs, man. They every year we think that we're waiting for them to decline, and they continue to do better. We thought this is the last year before that big Mahomes contract kicks in and all these big contracts kick in. So they had to do something. They were a little bit tight against the cap, but then Baltimore said, hey, you know what? We'll help you out. We'll send you an offensive tackle. We'll give you one of our best tackles. Why not? You go and kick our butt in the playoffs every year and go to the Super Bowl. We'll help you out. Then they got Joe Thuney from New England in free agency. I'm still worried about the left side of that offensive line. We'll see what they do there. Hopefully they gel. But of course, their offense is their offense. As long as Patrick Mahomes is on that field, that offense is going to rake and have a great. I'm always worried about the defense, and we bring it up every year. The Kansas City defense, but they're the middle of the pack defense. They're not a great defense, but they're a middle of the pack defense, and they do what they got to do. And there's nothing negative I could say about this team. Like I could say it all I want, but they keep continuing to prove me wrong. So until it actually shows and they drop a little bit, I'm not gonna say anything negative about this team.
There's nothing you can say, and I don't think that I'm waiting for them to falter or whatever, come back to the pack. I want the Bolts to just go and snatch it from them. Like, they're going to have to go and just play amazing football, mistake-free, win the close games. That's what any team is going to have to do, because when you have Patrick Mahomes, you're talking about, a Favre-type run or a Tom Brady-type run in a division where it's going to be 15 years of this guy. And you need to get your quarterback position, try to get it on the same level in some sort of comparison, right? If you look at a division like the NFC North, which has been ruled by the Packers for almost 30 years, it's because the quarterback position was solidified with Hall of Fame talent. They have Hall of Fame talent. Chargers are hoping they have Hall of Fame talent. Like I said, Derek Carr needs to step up and be that guy. So you can go one of two routes. You can be good every 5-6 years when your defense stays healthy, which what seems like the Broncos' approach is, or you can go out and you can keep chasing after the guy that can maybe compete and do things on a Mahomes level. But this Chiefs team is going to be a favorite every year that they have Patrick Mahomes because we've already seen the kind of crazy things that he can do. And it doesn't matter. Like, people be like, oh, who are they going to back him up with? Mecole Hardman is fine. Like, if Tyreek Hill misses a couple of games, Mecole Hardman is going to be just fine when Patrick Mahomes is delivering the football to him. Because when you have the right distributor, everything is going to go well. The Chiefs will, be at the top of this division again. And how can the defense not play good when they're being spotted 28 points in the first quarter? Give me a break. Pin your ears back and just go get the quarterback.
And I mean, you look at this Chiefs offense. I mean, like, obviously their main issue last year was the offensive line in the Super Bowl, and they really just blown people away about how much, significant improvements they made in the offseason. I mean, signing Joe Thuney, that was just genius by Andy Reid, and their coaching staff. Trading to get Orlando Brown from the Baltimore Ravens, I'm still kind of confused on why the Ravens would let that happen, especially, when, offensive linemen are very important to every team, but especially a team like the Ravens who just run the ball so much. And Orlando Brown is one of the best offense tackles in the league today. And I mean, you're trading away one of your best players to a team you're competing for to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. To me, that did not make any sense at all. But a major, major win there for the Chiefs. Bringing Creed Humphrey, the center from Oklahoma, I think that was a very, very underrated draft pick. I think it's going to be really, really good for them. I was surprised he dropped so far. But you look at this team, I would agree. I don't even know what you would say if it's a flaw or not, but just their defense, it's not great. But that's really the only thing I can talk bad about the Chiefs. When you look at these other teams, in the AFC West, they're going to be improving. The Raiders, I wouldn't be surprised if they had a one improvement. The Broncos, if they can figure out their quarterback situation, I think they're going to win more games. And then obviously the Chargers, who are going to be, in the playoffs. When you look at these teams, your defense is going to have to be improved because you're playing teams who are much better than they were last year. I didn't really see that significant, improvement on defense. That's really my only concern with the Chiefs. But overall, I mean, they're going to be one of the best teams in the league. Obviously, they're going to end up winning the AFC West. And I mean, it's interesting, with the Chiefs and Mahomes. I've seen some people say maybe the take a slight step back. Who knows? And that kind of goes into our, predictions here. This graphic, really sucks. I didn't really have much time to make this, but we had a little bit, of a different rankings for our predictions. So, Tony, can you kind of talk about your predictions first here?
Yeah, I'll start at the bottom. Like I said, the Broncos, I'm a bigger believer in Bridgewater than you are. I like him to just be able to put points on the board and not make turnovers and allow that defense to be opportunistic. So I think it would probably be a little bit higher than this. They're probably in that same range of like 9-win team. We talk a lot about 3 teams from the NFC making it in one division. I'm sorry. The AFC has so much talent, right? You got 2 teams in the Titans and Colts, and then you head out east, you got 3 teams out there. So like, it's going to be a lot harder. I think you're going to see some teams this year again be 11-6 and miss the playoffs in the AFC. Raiders at 9-8. I think they're above 500. I just want to see them get over the hump at the end of the year. I actually don't want to see it, but I'm saying, like, from just an analytical standpoint, is that can they get past that sort of end of the year? Do they have enough depth on the team to work through all of the injuries? The Chargers, my team, I feel like 10-7 is a good one. If I was going optimistic, I probably would have pushed to 11. If I was being pessimistic, I would probably be at 8 or 9. And then the Chiefs at the top. I just don't see how it doesn't it doesn't end with them at the top of the division because Patrick Mahomes and everybody's there. It would take some catastrophic injuries for the Chiefs to not be at the top of this mountain at the end of the year.
Joe, can you kind of talk about your record predictions?
Yeah, Tony and I are almost right there along the lines. The only thing we did was switch the Chargers and the Raiders. But yeah, Chiefs. I was looking at the Chiefs schedule, and it's like, really, they could go 15. They could win 15 games. I went 13-4 just to because there's a couple games that they slip up. The Raiders I have at 10-7. I can actually see them at 8-9. I can actually see them a little bit higher than that. So I go with the 10-7, the 9-8 for the Chargers. Like I said, Tony's right on it with the Chargers. They can win a couple more. They can lose a couple more. And the Broncos. Would it surprise me if all four of these teams are over 500 somehow? No, I wouldn't. Like if the Broncos went 8-9 and 9-8, would it surprise us? No. I think this is a very good division with a lot of good talent. So a lot of the AFC, but the AFC is loaded, and it's the better conference in the NFL. So it's going to be tough to get three teams in there from this division. But I'm seeing three teams right now in the playoffs from this division.
And you look at this division, it's interesting because there's lots of underrated divisions in the league right now. I mean, the AFC North and a couple other teams. I would put the AFC East is a pretty underrated one. But when you look at the AFC West, automatically everybody assumes the Chiefs and everything. But the more you dive into these rosters and these teams of the AFC West, this is just a very intriguing team division. I have the Raiders 6-11. I could see them winning maybe 8 or 9, but just their consistency and just their defense, I think it's going to be better, but I don't know how much it will be better type of situation. I wouldn't be surprised if they won a couple more games, but it just kind of goes back to show. I mean, this AFC West is not easy by any means. Like if you win against Denver, you win against the Raiders, it's not going to be as easy, in my opinion, what people think. The Broncos 9-8. I know that's higher than pretty much everybody, but I feel like Teddy Bridgewater, if he starts some, I think he might be all right. If they take the lock, I think he'll be good. But I said it earlier, neither one of those quarterbacks have to play great. They just have to play good. And if you can play good with the talent the Broncos have, I mean, they have one of the most underrated, talented rosters in the league today. You could just be good in that offense. You already have a really nice defense and one of the best safeties in the league in Justin Simmons, Bradley Chubb, Von Miller, and some other guys as well. But that offense, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, Cortland Sutton, Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams, and the defense, decent offensive line, I could see this Broncos team winning 8-9 games, even if the quarterback isn't great. And then the Chargers at 11-6. I keep going back to 10-11 wins for the Chargers. I just really think they're going to be one of those surprise teams this year. They're going to shock some people. I'm not going to say Herbert is an MVP candidate, because I'm just going to say he's going to be good. He will exceed some people's expectations, I'll put it that way. But with Herbert, he was the best rookie quarterback we've ever seen, with PFF rating the worst offensive line last season. When you get the best center in the NFL, when you get a top 5 offensive lineman last season and Corey Lindsley, Rashawn Slater, when you have those guys and you're getting Eckler back from injury, and you won 4 straight games to end the season, you're ending on an extremely high note. I definitely think 10-11 wins is capable and doable for the LA Chargers. And then you look at the Chiefs. It's interesting because I think the Chiefs are going to be obviously one of the best teams in the league. I think this division is slightly closer than people think. I'm not saying the Chargers will win the division at all. Just saying it's slightly closer than what people might be saying. But you look at this Chiefs team. I think there might be a couple games where they maybe mess up and lose occasionally, because you look at these teams in the NFL, every single team has a game and they lose that they absolutely should not. You look at the Chargers. I think the Chargers are capable of beating the Chiefs once. I think the Broncos, with the young talent they have, I think it's possible maybe they upset the Chiefs. And to me, something interesting, you look back at the Raiders. Last year I made a Instagram post halfway point of the season, so the Raiders were the most underrated team in the season at that point. The Raiders already beat the Chiefs once, and they nearly beat them again on Sunday Night Football. So the Raiders kind of have the Chiefs number from last season. They nearly swept the Chiefs, which I really don't think is talked about enough. So I kind of feel like the Chiefs playing in a division, that comes thing. The AFC West is a lot harder than what people think. And I think the Chiefs might lose maybe one of these AFC West games. Maybe they shouldn't. And I think they will end up going 12-5, but still definitely ended up winning the AFC West.
So, okay, I think for the Chargers, here's the thing that you need to compete with Patrick Mahomes, in my opinion. And this is the one thing that is a little perplexing to how the Raiders beat them twice last year is like the Chargers have Derwin James that I think, if healthy, can kind of play with and bother Travis Kelce. Like make it at least a little bit tougher for him to eat on whatever given day that is. When the Chiefs have to go to Denver, if that team is healthy, if you're sending Bradley Chubb and Von Miller at them, and then they have all of those defensive backs there, like it makes it that much tougher, is that you want to be able to have that defense, but then also have that offensive punch to score. And I think that's where the Raiders were able to excel, is that every once in a while, for whatever reason, Gruden opens it up and they really allow success in the passing game to then elevate the run instead of going the other way, where it's like the run is elevating the pass. Joe, you can disagree with that if you want, but in those games, you either got to try and outscore that offense, or you got to have some key defensive pieces or a strong defense to play with Kansas City.
Yeah, and I think that's where we see the differences in the Raiders and the Chargers. The Raiders and the Chargers the Raiders, Chargers, and Broncos. The Raiders and Chargers went the offensive route. They go, we're going to find the offense and we're going to go out and score points with them. Chargers have a good defense to go along with it, but both of them loaded up to go, hey, we're going to score points, and that's the only way we're going to beat Kansas City, where Denver's taking the opposite route, saying we're going to slow Kansas City down and we're going to beat them with our defense. That's why I put Denver at the bottom. But it's a track meet, and every game in this division is going to be, I believe, a high scoring game. When I say high scoring game, I believe over 20 points per both teams. So Kansas City did that. They have they went out there and scored, made everybody scared of their offense, like Tony was saying. And to beat them, you will put up some points. You have to put up points. There's no stopping this Kansas City offense. So points is the name of the game in the AFC West.
And you look at this, division. I feel like this is one of the only divisions where every team is capable of making the playoffs. There might be another division or two, but I know I had the Raiders 6-11, but just with their inconsistency in their defense, we haven't seen their defense, in the regular season yet. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw them having more wins. Like I said, the roster on the Broncos, I just think you get an average quarterback in there who could be decent. I think they are capable of being in the playoffs. Obviously, then we have the Chargers and the Chiefs. This AFC West is super, super intriguing, way more interesting than I would say what the casual fan would think. Automatically you assume the Chiefs, but this division is going to be great this season. These games are very, very important when it comes to the standing, especially teams, like the Broncos, Raiders, and Chargers when it comes to, playoff positions. But, this was, a lot of fun, kind of talking about the AFC West divisional, preview, ranking the, 4 teams in the AFC West, looking at our rankings here, one more time. So Joe and Tony, can you kind of tell some of the listeners, where they can find you on social media, and also the Warzone Sports Network that you all have?
Yeah, go over to the Warzone Sports Network on YouTube and hit that subscribe button there. We have shows coming out every day, preview shows similar to this, debate shows, live watch parties going on for multiple NFL teams, updates, opportunities to collaborate, create, get in on the fun. The comments are always there. Head on over to YouTube. We're also on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Warzone Sports Network. It's a great place to hang out with other fellow sports fans and get in on the content.
And multiple single shows for your team. So we have a Raider show, we have a Charger show, we have an Eagle show, looking to add more for each and every team. But we are a network of sports fans for the sports fans. So we like to engage and have a great time with everybody.
Booyah!
I've seen your all's work. You're doing a great job. I mean, the content you are putting out every single day is just crazy. I mean, the team you all have, putting content there. fantastic job there. And I kind of mentioned it before that, mock draft this past year was, amazing with Rappaport and all those NFL Network guys. To me, that's definitely one of the coolest mock drafts I've seen. I'll definitely put the link in the description below so they can, sub to the channel and follow you and everything. That kind of about does it for this video. Make sure to follow me, the Sports Dude Hunt Show, on Instagram and Twitter. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. I would really, really, really appreciate it. I'll see you all next time on the Sports Dude Hunt Show.